Dear friends, comrades, people of conscience, it is genuinely an honor to be amongst you today. Today, like every day for the last almost 300 days, I awoke, as you did, to images of children in pieces, of parents tortured by the pain of their babies, unable to heal or help or protect them. It is a nightmare, the worst of nightmares for any parent. But today was also different. Today I woke to the news that a football field in Syria, where Syrian children were playing, was targeted in an as yet disputed attack. Our kids, your kids, or as the late great James Baldwin reminds us, they are all our children, were playing football with their friends, and now they will never go home. A whole universe of love extinguished. And for what? These are all our children, no caveats, no exceptions. This terrible onslaught is now escalating yet again in ways which many of us have been warning about for months, if not years. Israel has, in the last few months, not only slaughtered tens of thousands of Palestinians, it has also struck Syria, Lebanon, and technically Iran, following the missile strike on the Iranian embassy back in April. These are acts of war by a state, a belligerent state, which is a threat to Palestinians first and foremost, but also very clearly to the region more broadly. In the last 24 hours alone, 66 people have been killed in Gaza and countless more injured in attacks on schools, on a field hospital. There are no more red lines. We've crossed every single one of them over the last 10 months. Meanwhile, there is no food, clean water, or medicine, and diseases like polio and skin diseases are ravaging the population, ravaging the lucky ones. For the Palestinians in Gaza right now, it is hell on earth every single day. Palestinians are being exterminated through bombs, starvation, and disease in a relentless and cruel campaign which echoes some of the darkest chapters of colonial history and makes a mockery of any of the rules of international law and even the principles of war, the protection of civilians, the striking of schools and hospitals, attacks on medical workers and journalists. In the last 10 months, Israel has crossed every imaginable red line, and the consequences of their impunity will haunt us for decades to come. When you permit an exception to the rules of international law or human rights in any location, you provide the basis for an exception to be made on that principle by others. You create a world in which it is now too dangerous to cover certain conflicts. You create a world in which it is too dangerous for aid workers to enter certain war zones to provide immediate and urgent relief. Is this the world we really want to be living in? And all of this what? So we can provide impunity to Israel? We're going to dismantle the entire system of international law to protect Israel from accountability? In what world? In what world? Shame. Absolutely shame. That's why your presence here today and at every opportunity to raise your voice against these horrors is so vital. You are this society's moral conscience. Throughout history, it is people like you who have refused to accept injustice, oppression, and corruption, who represent the moral backbone of our societies. It is you who keep the moral conscience of our societies intact. You are essential. You are vital. You are part of a global movement throughout history of dissenters who have played essential roles in upholding the principles that our societies claim to be founded on. It is always the dissenters, the marginals, the persecuted who pay the high price, the demonization, the dehumanization, and even the prosecution at times for the simple act of raising their voice against moral wrongs. Those who challenge the status quo are always painted as black sheep, until, of course, history vindicates their role in the moral awakening. And yet, you are the moral awakening. Each and every one of you, you are the moral awakening. You are exactly the awakening that we need. And I know many of you are giving huge amounts of your time and energy to this fight. And I honestly wanted to be here today, first and foremost, to salute you. You are the heroes without capes, which Marvel should be making films about. You are the everyday heroes making history. It takes every single drop to make the ocean, but all together, we're a tidal wave. Never underestimate the importance of your presence and your actions. Every single drop counts. Every single one of you matters. Everything you do contributes. To quote American author Ralph Young, dissent is the fuel for the engine of progress. You're playing a vital and interconnected role in supporting the Palestinian liberation movement. And while some of you are Palestinian, many of you are not, like me. You are simply humans who recognize the inhumanity of the occupation, the abhorrence of the apartheid regime, and the horrors of the current wave of ethnic cleansing. And many of you were saying this long before the most recent verdict by the highest court in the world, which has vindicated each and every one of you. Thank you for being our moral conscience. Thank you for standing on the right side of history. The International Court of Justice declared last week that all activities carried out by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories are illegal, and that its unlawful presence should be brought to an end and reparations made to the Palestinians. I'm going to read that one again. The International Court of Justice declared that all activities carried out by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories are illegal, and that its unlawful presence should be brought to an end and reparations made to Palestinians. You are on the right side of history. You are among the small but vitally important group of resistors who ensure our societies do not sleepwalk into authoritarian nightmares where the value of one child's life is somehow more worthy than that of another. You have been and continue to be the light of humanity shining through this period of darkness. You are the hope. The over 80-page opinion marks the first time the ICJ has deemed Israel's long-term occupation of Palestinian territory unlawful, breaching international human rights and impeding Palestinian self-determination. Francesca Albanese, who many of you will know, the UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, called it a historic day for international justice and the decolonization of Palestine. With this decision, the court, the world's top court, in fact, formalizes what Palestinian, Israeli, and international human rights groups have been saying for decades. Israel's occupation is unlawful and it must end as rapidly as possible. As apartheid fell in South Africa, it must fall in Israel. And you are here to remind the world of that responsibility. I also want to share why there is a lot of reasons to be hopeful. Gaza right now is hell. Palestine is experiencing one of the darkest chapters in its history. And we know that the night is darkest just before dawn. The ICJ ruling is just one of a number of developments which should remind us that your efforts are bearing fruit. The UK has withdrawn its attempt to block the arrest warrant that Karim Khan had requested for the criminals Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant for war crimes. It has also committed to restarting funding to UNRWA at a time where Israel has sought to vilify and delegitimize this lifeline to Palestinians across the occupied territories and in refugee camps beyond. I apologize to the children in the room, but even the international community isn't buying the bullshit. Kamala Harris, although not saying what needs to be said, has changed tones from Biden, saying she will not be silent in the face of Palestinian suffering. Of course, this isn't enough. We need an end to arms sales and we need sanctions. But it is a shift. It's a clear sign. It means keep going. Keep going. Keep going. It's working. In Washington, hundreds of demonstrators from Jewish Voices for Peace protested the war in Gaza on Capitol Hill a few days ago, with around 200 people arrested. Can we please give a salute to our Jewish brethren standing up against attempts to justify these horrors in their name and the name of the beautiful and honorable religion of Judaism? We salute our Jewish brethren who know that we are all God's children and that we work to protect the sanctity of all human life. There are no exceptions. There are no distinctions. They are all our children. For months now, tens of thousands of Israelis have rallied against Netanyahu, demanding a Gaza hostage deal and his resignation. But even there, we are seeing changes. Even there, we are seeing the calls shift. We are seeing a growing number of calls to end the occupation. We are seeing a growing number of calls among Israelis demanding Palestinian right to self-determination. It is changing. You are making it change. You are shifting. Keep going. A growing number of IOF reservists are refusing to serve. That's Israelis refusing to serve under the current Israeli government. They are seeing it just like you do now. Starbucks has cut its yearly sales forecast and missed market expectations amid US and Middle East boycotts. The boycotts are working. Keep going. Boycott, boycott, boycott. There is cause for hope despite the horrors, and you are the cause for the hope. But the price we are paying for this slow awakening of people's consciousness is being paid in Palestinian blood, in the blood and tears and pain of children. And for that reason, we cannot relent. We must remain steadfast, just as they are showing us a resilience beyond human imagination. The Palestinian liberation movement is not a foreign movement, as some people would like to present it. It is a freedom movement. And is there anything more universal than freedom, I ask? No. It is a freedom movement which has revealed to us here in the West our deep enmeshment in systems of oppression and violence, from cop cities to corrupt political funding and the dark underbelly of the military-industrial complex and its love affair with those in power. We may think that we are working to free Palestine, but remember that it is always Palestine freeing us. Always remember, it is Palestine freeing us. When you work to free Palestine, you are working to free yourselves. Please remember that the boycott, divest and sanctions movement remains the most powerful tool we have to bring justice and peace to the region. The law is now on your side. I'm going to repeat that. The law is now on your side. They have to answer, not you. The law is on your side. The law is now on your side, and now you must remind every institution, every workplace, every town council, every school and university that as things stand today, we have a legal obligation to divest from Israel as it is engaged in apartheid and war crimes. We are no longer appealing to the moral sense of the oppressors. In fact, we are no longer appealing to the moral sense of those who clearly have none.